Imagine this. You wake up thinking it's just another day in Pompeii. Then you feel the ground tremble softly beneath your bed. You step outside, and there it is, a plume of black ash rising from the peak of Vesuvius, slowly stretching higher, like a dark cloud reaching for the sun. Tonight, we're traveling through 6 days just like this. 6 days when the world changed in a moment. Days remembered not for triumph, but for fear, confusion, and the quiet strength of ordinary people. These weren't just bad days. They were days when history cracked open, a mountain exploding, a plague arriving by ship, an entire city swallowed by waves, and mornings when the world woke up to news it never forgot. But don't worry, we're not here to relive the panic. We're here to slow down and gently walk through what really happened in the calmest way possible. Before we start, hit like and subscribe only if you truly enjoy these quiet, late-night trips through the past. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is right now for you. It always amazes me. People all over the world, sitting in the dark, letting history unfold softly while they fall asleep. So get comfortable, turn off the lights, pull up your blanket, and let your mind drift back to a world before alarms, before news, before explanations. It's the year 79. Pompeii is waking up, and the mountain above it is about to write one of the worst days in human history. The rumble settles into the distance, but it leaves a feeling in the air, a strange stillness, as if the whole world is holding its breath. You step further outside your doorway. The street is quiet. Only a few neighbors are awake, standing barefoot on the stone paths, still wrapped in linen and sleep. They're all looking in the same direction, toward Vesuvius. The column of ash is rising slowly, almost gracefully, curling upward like a long, dark ribbon. The morning sun tries to push through the haze, but the ash turns the light strange, a muted, dusty gold. You rub your eyes, thinking maybe you're still half asleep. But no, the sky is truly changing color. It feels like dawn is happening twice. Doors open. Neighbors step out. Some whisper, some stare silently. A baker down the street pauses with a basket of fresh bread in his hands. He doesn't shout his usual morning greetings. Not today. You hear a soft question from someone nearby. Is the mountain angry again? They ask it gently, almost casually, because in Pompeii, small tremors are a familiar part of life. The ground gives a small shake, not violent, not frightening, just enough to ripple through your feet like the vibration of a distant drum. Children nearby stop mid-step and glance back at their parents. A dog lifts its head and whines, ears twitching. Then stillness again. You look back toward Vesuvius and notice something drifting down. At first, your mind reaches for the only comparison it knows, snow. But these flakes don't melt. They dance lazily through the air, soft, grey, and weightless. One lands on your palm. It leaves a faint smudge of black. Someone behind you whispers that it's ash, the voice trembling with wonder more than fear. The city doesn't panic, not yet. People are curious, leaning against door frames, squinting at the sky. Life continues, but slower, as if time itself is learning to walk carefully. A merchant sweeps the ash from his stall with gentle, steady strokes. A woman gathers her children closer, but she still speaks softly to them, trying not to alarm anyone. You tilt your head upward. The ash cloud has grown taller, spreading outward like a giant tree towering above the mountain. The sky darkens a little more. Shadows lengthen in directions they don't normally reach this early. You can feel it. The day is becoming different. It takes a moment before you notice the silence in the air. No bird calls, no flutter of wings, no chirps echoing between the tiled roofs. The birds have vanished. It gives the whole town a dreamlike, unreal feeling. as if the world is briefly pausing in anticipation of something it cannot name. More families step outside. Some point at the sky. Some gather around the small fountains in the center of the street, their reflections rippling with every distant tremor. They speak in half whispers. Is it normal? Has it done this before? Should we go inside? Should we leave? Questions without answers, because no one alive has ever seen Vesuvius truly awaken. A warm breeze brushes your face, not hot, but warmer than the cool morning air should be. It feels unnatural, like the breath of something enormous. The smell changes too, a faint scent of sulfur, dry earth, and something metallic lingering in the air. You wander toward the market square. Vendors stand behind their stalls, but their voices are quiet. A man selling figs keeps looking over his shoulder instead of arranging his baskets. A woman selling fish pauses with a knife in her hand, eyeing the ash drifting down onto the wooden counter. Life continues, but in a whisper. By now, the sky has dimmed to the pale shade of late afternoon, but the day has barely begun. Shadows stretch strangely long across the stone streets. Light pools in odd corners. Colors look muted, as if someone has taken a soft cloth and gently wiped the world. The ash begins to fall more steadily, gathering in tiny heaps along the edges of rooftops. Children reach out to catch it as if it were a new kind of snow. Parents gently pull them back, not with fear, but with caution. Neighbors trade guesses. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it'll stop. Maybe the gods are angry. Maybe it's just smoke. A deeper rumble rolls through the sky, slower, heavier, like the sound of a great stone door being moved far beneath the earth. People stop talking and listen. Even the children fall silent. You look up again. The ash cloud now reaches impossibly high, spreading into the sky like a dark umbrella. The world feels dim, but strangely peaceful. No one knows that this is just the beginning, just the first hour of a day that will one day be frozen in time, a day that will become one of the worst in human history. The ash that once fell like gentle flakes now descends more steadily, soft and constant. It gathers in your hair, on your shoulders, across the palms of your hands. The world around you grows quieter as the ash muffles sound the same way snow does in winter. Every footstep feels softer. Every echo fades faster. More neighbors step outside now. Some hold cloth over their mouths. Others shield their eyes to look upward. The cloud above Vesuvius spreads wider and wider, like a great shadow stretching its arms over the entire sky. A few older residents shake their heads slowly, murmuring that this does not feel like the small tremors they grew up with. A horse tied near a cart stomps nervously, shaking its head. Dogs bark and then fall silent, as if confused by their own instincts. A flock of goats tries to pull away from their pen, pushing against the wooden slats as though the earth itself is something they no longer trust. The sunlight filters through the ash cloud in thin, hazy beams. It makes the world look almost underwater, colors washed out and swaying softly. Shadows move strangely too, stretching long and thin, as if the day is ending early even though it isn't. As more people gather in the streets, their voices lower. No one wants to be loud. No one wants to disturb whatever is happening in the mountain. A man carrying a basket of oranges sets them down slowly, one by one, as if placing them too quickly might shake the earth again. A woman kneels to wipe ash from her doorstep, but each time she clears it, more takes its place. Then, far in the distance, you hear something new, not a tremor, not a rumble, a deep, heavy thump, like the sound of a giant heartbeat from somewhere beneath the ground. It doesn't frighten you. It just fills the air with a strange, hollow stillness. The ash begins to fall faster now. Not harshly, not violently, just steadily. It drifts down the way gentle spring rain does, but without the sound of raindrops. The rooftops grow dusted in grey. The streets look powdered. People brush it from their clothes with slow, careful movements. When you glance up again, you notice the sky has shifted to a dim, unnatural yellow. The mountain's plume spreads out in layers, dark at the base, lighter near the edges, like smoke rising from a giant, invisible torch. Someone nearby whispers that the gods must be speaking. The breeze that passes through Pompeii feels warmer now. Not hot, just warm enough to make people glance at each other with quiet concern. Your skin tingles slightly, as if the air itself is humming with energy. The ash that was once soft now feels a bit heavier, like tiny grains of sand. It sticks to your clothes and crunches faintly beneath your sandals. People begin sweeping their steps more often, as if trying to keep some sense of normalcy. Far above Vesuvius, you notice tiny flashes, brief, flickering bursts of light inside the ash cloud. They are silent, like lightning seen from far away through thick fog. Most people do not see it yet, but you do. And you know that nothing today resembles an ordinary morning anymore. The once busy streets grow emptier. Shopkeepers retreat indoors but leave their doors partly open to watch the sky. Some families gather quietly in courtyards, holding small baskets of belongings just in case. One child tugs at her mother's sleeve and asks if it will stop. Her mother forces a gentle smile but doesn't answer. For a brief moment, everything becomes still. No tremors, no thumps. Only the faint whisper of ash drifting through the air. It is the kind of silence that feels too big for a small town like Pompeii. A silence that makes everyone wait without knowing what they're waiting for. And then, another distant, heavy sound. Vesuvius lets out a deep groan, a sound that rolls across the sky and echoes through the valley like a long, low exhale. People freeze in place, staring at the mountain. The ash cloud grows darker near the base, rising thicker and faster than before. You feel it, a shift in the air, a subtle change in the way people breathe, the way they stand, the way they look at one another. Not panic, not yet, just the quiet, heavy realization that something extraordinary is happening. You look toward Vesuvius one more time. The ash cloud is now enormous, towering high above the valley, spreading outward like a massive shadow. And though no one says it aloud, everyone feels the same thing. The day has changed, and it will not return to what it was. The second gallery opens slowly, and you find yourself standing at the edge of a quiet medieval port. It is early morning in Messina, a small city in Sicily, where the air is warm and the sea moves gently against the wooden docks. Fishermen unload nets, sailors stretch after a long night's rest, and the sky glows with soft golden light as the sun lifts over the horizon. No one has any idea that today will become one of the darkest days in history. On the horizon, you see the silhouettes of 12 Genoese trading ships. Their sails hang loosely, barely catching the wind. The ships drift closer, but something about them feels odd. They move quietly, too quietly. No shouts from sailors, no rush of activity on deck, just a slow, silent approach toward the harbor. As the first ship reaches the docks, the workers step forward, ready to tie ropes and greet the crew. But when they peer up at the deck, they freeze. The men aboard are slumped against barrels, collapsed near the mast, lying motionless along the planks. Some breathe shallowly, some do not move at all. A soft, confused murmur spreads across the dock. What happened to them? Are they sick? Were they attacked at sea? The sailors on the docks look at one another, waiting for someone to offer an answer. No one does. One sailor on the ship lifts his head weakly when he hears voices. He tries to call out, but only a soft rasp escapes. When he shifts, you see the black swelling beneath his jaw. A raised lump, dark as ink, the size of a small egg. Another sailor nearby has the same mark near his armpit. People on the dock step back slowly, not out of fear, but out of bewilderment. No one in Messina has ever seen anything like this. As the other ships arrive, the same sight appears again and again. Men too weak to stand, faces pale, breathing shallow, their bodies marked by the same dark swellings. The dock workers whisper to the city guards. The guards whisper to the merchants. The merchants whisper to the priests. Curiosity spreads first, not fear. A group of city officials steps forward. They speak quickly, trying to understand how to deal with the situation. Should the ships be turned away? Should the sailors be helped? Should the cargo be unloaded? No one wants to make the wrong decision, yet no one understands what the right decision is. Minutes pass. People gather. The harbour grows crowded, and with each breath of wind that sweeps across the ships, the illness silently crosses the gap between deck and dock. The waterfront becomes a cluster of townspeople. Some cover their mouths, though they do not know why. Others cross themselves. A few step even closer to get a better look at the strange black swellings. Children peek from behind their parents' robes. Dogs sniff at the ground, then retreat as if the scent is unfamiliar and unpleasant. Despite their uncertainty, the officials decide to let a few sailors come ashore for help. They are carried down the ramps, wrapped in blankets that hide the worst of their wounds. Some moan softly, some shiver under the warm sun. One man whispers something about a sickness that swept through every ship before they reach Sicily, but his voice breaks before he can finish. He is too weak to say anything more. People move aside instinctively, but they do not run. In this age, illness is common. Fever is familiar. Sickness is a part of life. No one imagines that death can travel this quickly, or that a tiny flea hidden in the fur of a rat could carry something that might change the world. They simply think the sailors have suffered hardship. As the sailors are carried away, a few rats scurry down the ropes connecting the ships to the dock. They move quickly, darting between crates, slipping beneath market stalls, disappearing into the city's alleys. No one notices them, not a single person, yet they will shape the fate of the continent more than any king, any soldier, or any priest. By midday, the ships have been secured. The 6 sailors are moved to small rooms near the docks. The rest of the town tries to return to normal. But the harbour workers cannot forget what they saw on the ships. The pale faces, the swollen lumps, the silence. A strange heaviness settles over the port. People continue with their tasks, but their eyes drift back toward the anchored ships, over and over again. Something feels wrong, deeply wrong, but the worst of it has not begun. As the sun climbs higher, the city tries to settle back into its usual rhythm. Merchants open their stalls. Children chase each other through narrow alleys. Fishermen repair nets while sitting in the shade of stone archways. Yet everything feels softer, slower, as if the morning left a strange imprint on the day. Near the docks, one of the workers pauses and puts a hand to his neck. A small lump presses beneath his skin, tender, warm, unusual. He brushes it off as a swollen gland, common enough, nothing alarming. He continues working, lifting crates, coiling ropes, slowly breathing in the warm breeze that blows from the ships. In the marketplace, laughter echoes, but not as brightly as usual. People seem distracted. Conversations wander. Eyes drift toward the harbor, as if the city's heartbeat now pulses in that direction. There is no fear yet, just a quiet, uneasy curiosity. A pair of priests walk through the streets, sprinkling holy water and offering prayers. They heard rumors about the sick sailors, and they murmur that perhaps a blessing will calm the spirits of the town. People bow their heads politely, but their eyes stay open. They are watching each other without meaning to. A few children begin to cough, just lightly. Their mothers pat their backs and say it's the morning air or the dust kicked up from the busy streets. No one thinks to wonder if the coughing has anything to do with the ships. The rats that slipped from the ships move deeper into Messina now. They scurry beneath carts, into grain stores, under doorways cracked open to let in the breeze. They carry something far smaller than themselves, something invisible and silent. With every place they visit, a thin thread of unseen danger unravels a little more. By midday, a dock worker sits down suddenly, pressing a hand to his head. He feels warm, too warm. He tells his friends that the sun is getting to him, that he just needs water, that he didn't sleep well. They help him to the shade without worry. Sickness is part of life, and fevers come and go. Not far from the port, a fruit seller sways where he stands. He reaches for his stall to steady himself, but his fingers brush the wooden frame too lightly to grip it. He crumples gently to the ground. A few people rush over and lift him carefully. His skin is pale, his breathing shallow. Someone suggests he hasn't eaten enough. Another says it must be the heat. The streets grow quieter. People keep glancing around, not with panic, but with the sense that the air around them has changed in some subtle way. A few families close their shutters early. A few merchants pack their stalls with less enthusiasm. No one says the word plague. No one even thinks it. They simply know that something is spreading, softly, silently, like breath. As the sun dips lower, the shadows stretch long across the stone streets. The day feels heavier than it should. Sailors remain locked in their rooms. Dock workers rest uneasily. Families stay close together as they prepare the evening meal. The city of Messina goes about its routine, tucking itself in for night, not knowing that by morning dozens will be sick. And within days the streets will fill with fear and confusion. The worst has not yet begun. This is only the first quiet step of a disaster that will echo across continents. The next gallery opens, and you find yourself standing in the soft golden light of early morning Lisbon. It is November 1st, 1755. A holy day, a peaceful one. The sun rises gently over red-tiled roofs and quiet stone streets. The Tagus River glimmers like polished bronze. Bakers fold warm dough into neat shapes. Fishermen set out baskets of fresh catch. Families sweep their doorsteps with slow, steady movements. The city feels calm in the way only a morning can, unhurried, unaware, unburdened. All across Lisbon, church doors open. Candles flicker. Incense hangs lightly in the air. Voices murmur prayers for All Saints' Day. You step inside one of the chapels. The light is warm. The walls glow softly. People kneel in quiet devotion, heads bowed, hands folded. Outside, horses trot along cobbled streets. Shopkeepers lift wooden shutters. Children carry baskets of herbs and dried figs. The entire city moves to a gentle rhythm, a slow morning heartbeat that feels ancient and comforting. As you step back outside, you notice something strange. The breeze has stopped. completely. The river looks too smooth, as if someone pressed pause on the natural world. People glance upward, not with fear, but with curiosity. The air feels heavier, like a warm blanket resting on your shoulders. A stray dog whines and paws at the ground. A horse refuses to take another step forward, its eyes fixed on something far away. Birds flutter suddenly from the rooftops, flying inland in a scattered burst of motion. People chuckle softly and shake their heads. Animals can be strange, they say, especially in the morning. You walk toward the edge of the Tagus River. Something catches your eye. The waterline is lower than it should be, much lower. Ships lean at awkward angles. Barnacles glisten on parts of hulls that are normally hidden. A fisherman frowns but keeps working, assuming the tide is simply unusual today. Lisbon grows quiet again. Too quiet. Conversation slow. Footsteps soften. Even the gulls circle silently overhead. It feels like the entire city is taking in a deep breath. You stand on the harbor's edge and feel it, the softest vibration under your feet. Not a shake, not yet, just a distant hum, like the earth whispering through stone. People pause and tilt their heads slightly, but say nothing. Street vendors continue laying out goods, wool, spices, olive oil, colored threads, candles for the holy day. But their hands move slower. Their eyes linger longer on the calm river and the still sky. Something feels different, but no one knows what. You step inside one of the grander churches. Light pours through stained glass in soft hues, amber, ruby, and blue. Hundreds of candles glow like stars scattered across stone. The air is warm, peaceful, sacred. Priests chant slowly, their voices blending into a gentle drone. As you kneel, you feel the floor under your knees grow strangely warm. A faint vibration runs through the marble, barely noticeable. Someone looks up, someone else pauses mid-prayer, but the chanting continues, steady and calm. The candles along the altar begin to tremble, just faintly, just enough to make the flames bend sideways for a moment. A few people gasp softly, then smile nervously. They think it must be a strong wind passing outside, but the doors are closed, and the air is still. The priest's voice echoes through the hall. People breathe slowly, deeply. No one rushes, no one panics. The world outside remains quiet. The river stays low. The animals remain restless, and beneath the stone floors, the earth shifts slowly in the darkness. You step outside again, drawn by the strange stillness. Lisbon looks almost frozen, like a painting. The air feels thick, the sky too bright, the shadows too sharp. The people in the streets walk more quietly now, their conversations reduced to whispers. Everyone can sense something is coming. They just don't know what. The bells ring for morning mass. Their sound is clear, clean, almost glass-like. The ground beneath your feet pauses too, as if the earth is preparing for something enormous. A woman arranging fruit slows her hands. A man leading a mule pauses mid-step. Everything hangs in a delicate balance. The city draws in one final breath of calm. The bells fade. The breeze returns for just a moment, a warm, gentle sigh moving through the streets. You look toward the river. The water is still unnaturally low. And then the world waits, completely still, completely silent. Lisbon stands in the last peaceful minutes before one of the worst days in human history unfolds. The quiet ends with a sound so deep it feels more like a feeling than a noise. A low rumble slides beneath your feet, not a sharp shake, but a long, gentle roll, as if the entire city is floating on a restless sea. When you look down, a few grains of dust dance along the stones. The streets don't erupt in panic. People simply freeze in place. A man carrying bread holds his basket tighter. A woman stops mid-step, eyes soft with confusion. Two children cling to each other, but they do not cry. The tremor passes almost as gently as it came. For a moment, Lisbon relaxes. People glance around, shrug softly, and return to their routines. Tremors happen sometimes. Life continues. But as the city takes its next breath, the second tremor arrives. This one is stronger. The ground shifts like a moving floor, slow and heavy. Water in the fountains ripples outward. Horses stumble slightly. Candles inside chapels bend to one side as if pulled by invisible hands. People grip nearby walls and look around with wide, uncertain eyes. For a moment, the sensation feels almost like being on a boat, a slow, rolling motion from beneath the stone streets. Buildings groan softly, like old trees bending in a storm. Still, no one screams. They simply wait, rooted to the ground. Then comes the third one, a deep, heavy jolt that snaps through the ground with the weight of something ancient and powerful. Loose tiles slide off rooftops. A crack creeps along the side of a stone wall, quiet but visible. People gasp in whispers, soft, breathy sounds you can barely hear. Inside a crowded cathedral, the floor shifts under kneeling worshippers. Candles fall one by one, their flames flickering across the marble. A priest steadies himself against the altar, eyes widening as the columns shiver. Still, the chanting doesn't fully stop. Some people continue their prayers through trembling lips. The ground lets out a long, low groan, a sound so unnatural it feels like the earth is breathing in pain. You feel the vibration in your bones, in your teeth, in your chest. The people of Lisbon finally grasp that this is no ordinary tremor. The cathedral walls bow slightly inward. Dust falls like light snowfall from the ceiling. Outside, a chimney collapses in a soft, echoing crash. A few people take small steps back, but they move slowly, almost dreamlike, as if the world has lost its urgency. The cobblestones beneath your feet shift like waves, slow, rolling waves, lifting and lowering in an unnatural rhythm. People stumble, not violently, just enough to lose their balance for a breath. More cracks split the earth, zigzagging through streets like dark lines drawn by a giant hand. In homes and shops, plaster shakes loose from ceilings and walls, drifting down in soft, powdery clouds. Bowls rattle on shelves. Doors swing open slowly. Barrels roll a few feet across the floor. Then, as suddenly as it began, the shaking stops. Silence spreads through the city. People stand frozen in doorways, in streets, in churches, breathing shallow, waiting. The air feels heavy and full of dust. After a long moment, Lisbon exhales. People dust off their clothes, pick up fallen items, adjust baskets and shawls. They speak in quiet murmurs. Is it over? Was that all? The gods must be angry today. Perhaps we should stay outside. Hope returns for a brief, fragile moment. A faint vibration rolls through the ground again. Soft, almost gentle, but people feel it. Their shoulders stiffen. Hands grip whatever is near. It grows stronger, steadier, more insistent. The ground shudders with a force that feels alive. Stones shift violently beneath your feet. A section of the quay tilts downward as if pulled by invisible hands. A massive crack opens near the riverfront, slowly at first, then faster. People back away, eyes wide, but movement slow. Towers sway like tall pines in a strong wind. Walls bend and straighten again. The city seems to rock from side to side as though Lisbon itself has become a ship at sea. Inside the cathedral, statues tremble on their pedestals. The longest roll of the earthquake moves through Lisbon like a giant wave, a slow motion tilt that feels endless. People drop to their knees instinctively, pressing palms to the ground as if to steady themselves against the shifting world. The tremors slow, fade, soften. A hush falls over the city. Lisbon hangs in a fragile silence again, not yet realizing that the next minutes will bring fire, flood, and devastation. The earth has only begun its terrible awakening. The final tremor fades like a sigh disappearing into stone. The city stands in an eerie stillness. Dust hangs in the air like soft morning mist. Streets are coated in pale grey powder. The sky has dimmed beneath the haze. No one speaks loudly. All voices drop to hushed breaths and soft murmurs. Inside the great cathedrals, the final echoes of falling plaster settle into silence. People step outside one by one. They blink in the strange light. They cross themselves with trembling hands. But their faces are quiet, more stunned than afraid. The Lisbon you saw just moments ago is now different. Streets are uneven. Walls lean sideways. A few arches have cracked open at the top like split fruit. The familiar sound of horses trotting is replaced by the soft crumble of loose stones. People step softly through the dust, as if waking in a strange dream. They reach out to steady themselves against tilted walls, pausing to study every movement of the untrustworthy ground. Children cling to their parents' robes and look around with wide, silent eyes. A faint glow appears at the edge of the city, then another. Small fires born from fallen candles and toppled lamps begin to spread slowly, creeping through wooden beams and open doorways. They are not loud, not fast, just steady. In the bustling market quarter, the fires meet the wooden stalls and crates filled with spices, oils, and cloth. They burn with quiet determination, moving from stand to stand like a slow, glowing tide. People try to stamp out small flames with their feet, but many fires burn inside buildings they cannot reach. The smoke rises into the dusty air, merging into a thick, blurred veil that softens the edges of every shape. It becomes hard to tell where buildings end and sky begins. The sunlight weakens to an amber hue, faded and surreal. You hear a new sound from the Tagus River. At first, it blends with the rumble of falling stones, but soon it grows louder and deeper, a soft roar like distant surf approaching shore. People turn toward the river, stepping carefully over broken stones. When you reach the riverfront, you see the water has retreated farther still. Boats lie stranded on muddy banks. The exposed earth glistens wetly under the dim light. People stare in hushed confusion, wondering why the river is pulling away from the city. Wooden docks lean at strange angles, as if bowing toward the riverbed. Ropes hang loose. Sails flap weakly. Barrels roll in lazy arcs across the tilting planks. A fisherman whispers that the water is running from them. The air grows heavy and strangely warm. People step closer to the dry riverbed, curious, trying to understand this unnatural tide. A faint shiver of wind brushes your cheek. The sea is pulling itself inward, gathering strength far away beyond the horizon. Across the great expanse of the Tagus, you see a dark line forming on the water. At first, it looks like a shadow. Then it rises, slowly, deliberately. A wall of water shimmering in the muted light. The wave does not roar like a storm. It moves silently, almost gracefully, gliding toward the city with a steady, unstoppable calm. People back away from the riverfront, step slow, eyes fixed on the approaching swell. The water reaches the quay with a low, powerful push. It climbs over the stone edge and flows into the streets in a wide, glimmering sheet. It fills the lower alleys like a tide coming in too fast for anyone to comprehend. No screams, just heavy breathing and hurried footsteps. As the water spreads, it meets the fire in the market quarter. Steam rises in quiet bursts. Flames hiss and shrink beneath the rushing tide. But other fires continue burning further uphill, untouched by the flood. Lisbon becomes a patchwork of fire and water and drifting smoke. Some streets are soaked and glistening. Others burn in slow orange waves. The earth still trembles now and then, as if releasing small breaths after a long cry. As the water settles and the fires flicker, a deep quiet seizes the city again. People gather in small groups, holding one another, whispering prayers into dusty sleeves. The sky dims under a blanket of smoke and rising ash. The world feels different now, heavier, slower, as if time itself has thickened in the air. Lisbon stands in ruins and silence, its people dazed but breathing. In the soft haze of smoke and dust, you realize you are standing in one of the worst days humanity has ever lived through. And yet, even here, in the aftermath, there is quiet. The next gallery opens with soft, pale morning light falling over the city of Sarajevo. It is June 28th, 1914. A warm summer day, calm and untroubled. The kind of morning that feels too gentle to hold anything dangerous. The Miljacka River glimmers like a sheet of quiet silver as the sun lifts slowly over the hills. Shopkeepers unlatch wooden doors. Women sweep dust from stone steps. Children chase each other between narrow alleyways lined with clay roofs and market stalls. The city breathes at its own steady pace, unhurried and warm, alive with the peaceful rhythm of a summer morning. Today is special. Crowds gather along the streets because a royal visitor is passing through the city. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, is here on an official trip. People carry small flags. Some wear their finest clothes. Others lean out from balconies to see the procession. The mood is festive, not fearful. Inside a quiet room at the governor's residence, the Archduke and his wife Sophie prepare for the day. He adjusts his uniform with slow, practiced movements. Sophie smooths a crease in her white dress and smiles softly. They look peaceful, unaware that their names will soon be etched into history. The city streets fill gradually. Men in wool coats, women in embroidered shawls, vendors selling fruit and sweet bread. Horse-drawn carriages wait at the edges of the square. A band tunes its instruments, letting soft, scattered notes drift through the air. No one senses anything unusual. Among the sea of spectators, a small group of young men stand quietly. Their faces look ordinary. Their clothes look ordinary. Nothing about them draws attention, but tucked beneath their coats are pistols and small round bombs. They watch the crowd. They watch the street. They wait with breath held just slightly too long. The summer air hangs warm and unmoving. Flags flutter lazily. Dust rises gently beneath the feet of the gathering crowd. People murmur softly, wondering when the procession will begin. A dog barks in the distance. A dove rests on a rooftop, unaware of the history unfolding below. A row of open-topped automobiles lines up in front of the building. Engines rumble quietly. Drivers adjust their gloves and wipe dust from the seats. The governor gives instructions in a calm tone. pointing at maps and gesturing along the route that runs beside the river. The Archduke and Sophie step out into the morning light. Crowds cheer politely. Sophie waves. Franz Ferdinand nods. They climb into the second car of the motorcade. Sophie sits beside him, and they exchange a few quiet words only they can hear. The motorcade begins to move, slowly, steadily, rolling along the narrow streets lined with sand-colored buildings and brick balconies. Children wave flags. People lean forward to see the couple. Up ahead, standing among the crowd, one of the young conspirators watches the approaching car. His hand rests on a small bomb. His pulse is steady, his eyes calm. He takes a slow breath, waiting for the car to draw close enough. As the car approaches, he steps forward slightly, then stops. A police officer stands just a few feet away. Families with children surround him. Throwing the bomb now feels impossible without hurting the wrong people. He lowers his arm. The moment passes. The motorcade continues, unaware. Franz Ferdinand smiles politely toward the crowd. Sophie adjusts her hat as the warm sunlight flickers across her face. They look like any other couple enjoying a public celebration. A little further ahead, another young man stands ready. He has rehearsed this moment in his mind for months. But now, in the noise and movement of the real city, his hands tremble. He wipes sweat from his palm and waits. As the car approaches, he lifts his arm and throws the small round bomb toward the Archduke's vehicle. It arcs through the summer air, but instead of landing inside the car, it strikes the folded down roof and bounces off. It rolls behind the vehicle and explodes beneath the next car in the procession. The explosion echoes across the street, but the crowd does not erupt into chaos. People gasp and step back, but their movements are slow and uncertain. A cloud of dust rises. The damaged car rolls to a stop. A few soldiers shout directions, but their voices remain steady. The Archduke stands in the middle of the street, his uniform dusted with grey powder. He's not wounded. He brushes ash from Sophie's sleeve and asks calmly if she is hurt. She shakes her head and places a gentle hand on his arm. The governor urges him to stop the procession and return to safety. Franz Ferdinand refuses. He insists on visiting the wounded in the hospital. The motorcade slowly prepares to continue. No one realizes that this choice, this quiet act of compassion, will place him directly in the path of the man waiting further ahead. And within the hour, the world will change. The dust from the explosion settles slowly over the cobblestones, falling like a soft grey mist. People move with hesitance, not rushing, not running, just drifting. The damaged car sits smoking quietly in the middle of the street. Soldiers lean over the injured, speaking in calm, low voices. Franz Ferdinand and Sophie remain unharmed. The governor urges them to end the visit, to return to safety, to leave the city at once. But Franz Ferdinand insists on continuing. He wants to go to the hospital to see the wounded soldiers who were riding in the car behind him. His voice is steady, certain of his duty. Sophie nods beside him, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. The cars reorganize themselves. Drivers dust ash from their coats. Engines rumble back to life. A map is brought out to mark the new route toward the hospital. The governor gives quiet instructions about turning toward the quay, then taking a sharp right onto Franz Joseph Street. He speaks slowly, tracing the path with 2 fingers, but not everyone hears him. The motorcade begins to roll forward, slow and measured. People step aside as the cars pass. The air is still warm, the sunlight pale against the drifting dust. Sophie adjusts her hat. The Archduke leans forward slightly, speaking to the driver in a low, steady tone. As the cars move away from the site of the explosion, the street grows quieter. Crowds thin out. Vendors reopen their stalls. A group of boys kicks a small leather ball along a side street, their laughter soft and tentative. Life tries to return to normal. Meanwhile, the group of conspirators scatters through the city. Some flee, some hide, some watch from a distance as the motorcade continues. One young man, Gavrilo Princip, walks slowly toward a small deli near the Latin Bridge. He is quiet, thin, exhausted by the morning's chaos. He did not throw his weapon. He did not take his chance. In his mind, the mission has failed. Everything feels heavy and pointless. He steps into the small shop, orders a piece of bread, and stands alone near the doorway. He is not waiting. He is not hunting. He is simply existing. Meanwhile, the cars roll along the river. Sunlight reflects off the water in shimmering ripples. Franz Ferdinand leans closer to Sophie, and they speak softly, their voices barely rising above the hum of the engine. They believe the danger has passed. Up ahead, a policeman tries to wave down the first car. He shouts instructions about the new route, the right turn onto Franz Josef Street. But the driver does not hear him. The engine hums too loudly. The distance is too great. His attention is fixed on the road ahead. The warning fades into the warm summer air. At a wide intersection near the Latin Bridge, the lead car turns casually to the right, the original route they were meant to abandon. The driver believes he is following the plan. No one corrects him in time. The second car follows automatically, like a shadow drifting behind the first. Franz Ferdinand leans forward and frowns. They are going the wrong way. The governor leans in too, nodding. The driver begins to slow down so he can reverse. Inside the deli, Gavrilo Princip finishes his bread and steps out into the warm sunlight. He wipes crumbs from his coat and breathes deeply, preparing to head home. Then he hears a low rumble. He turns his head. Down the street, rolling slowly along the path they were not supposed to take, the open-top cars appear. Not fast, not erratic, just drifting forward along the wrong road. Princip freezes. The driver of the Archduke's car slows to a stop as he realizes the mistake. He puts the car into reverse, but the engine stalls for a moment. The car pauses directly in front of the small deli doorway where Princip stands. The world seems to stop breathing. Princip reaches inside his coat. His movements are slow, deliberate, almost gentle. He does not shout. He does not rush. He steps forward with quiet, steady footsteps. In a moment that feels dreamlike, he raises the pistol and fires 2 shots. 2 soft cracks, muted and delicate in the summer air. Then silence folds over the street. Sophie gasps softly and slumps against her husband. Franz Ferdinand leans toward her instinctively, arms wrapping around her shoulders. His voice is faint, almost a whisper. People stare, frozen. Soldiers rush forward a heartbeat too late. Princip lowers the gun with a strange calm and does not flee. The city falls into an unnatural quiet, as if the earth itself has stopped turning for a moment. No one knows yet that these 2 soft shots will unravel alliances, ignite nations, and pull the world into one of the darkest days in human history. The echoes of the gunshots fade quickly into the warm summer air. For a long moment, no one moves. Dust floats through beams of sunlight. The river drifts quietly beyond the bridge. The city seems frozen inside a single breath. In the open car, Franz Ferdinand leans over his wife Sophie, He whispers her name softly, as if calling her back into the world. His face, usually stern and composed, softens with worry and disbelief. Her gloved hand rests lightly against his arm. The soldiers nearby step forward with movements slowed by shock. Their boots crunch softly against the dirt. They surround the car, not rushing, but drifting into position, as if trying to understand what has happened. Gavrilo Princip makes no attempt to run. He stands quietly, as though he has become a shadow blending into the warm sunlight. Two officers approach him and take hold of his arms. He does not resist. He does not speak. He simply lowers his head and allows himself to be led away. The people lining the street slowly begin to move again. They whisper in small clusters, hands pressed over their mouths, eyes wide not with fear, but with stunned confusion. Some step closer to get a better look. Others step away as though the world has shifted beneath them. A driver from the motorcade rushes to the Archduke's vehicle. He leans in and speaks gently, offering to take them to the governor's residence. Franz Ferdinand does not move right away. He keeps Sophie in his arms, holding her as though the world has narrowed to only the two of them. The car begins to move again, not quickly, not with urgency, just a slow, steady roll back toward the governor's mansion. People part in silence as it passes. No cheers, no cries, just soft murmurs drifting away as the engine hums. The mansion stands quietly at the top of a hill, its pale walls glowing in the afternoon light. Doctors wait outside with bags in hand, their faces heavy with dread. They rush to the car as it arrives, but their voices remain low, as if afraid to disturb the moment. Inside the mansion, the Archduke and Sophie are brought into a quiet reception room. Curtains sway gently in the summer breeze. The sound of distant carriages drifts through the window. A doctor kneels beside Sophie, his movements calm and respectful. Franz Ferdinand remains at her side. Officials enter slowly, one by one. They speak in whispers, their voices barely audible as they consult each other. No one wants to be loud on a day so fragile. The air feels thick with sorrow and disbelief. In the corner of the room, a young messenger writes down brief notes to be sent back to Vienna. Even he moves softly as he writes. He knows these words will travel quickly through palace halls, carrying the weight of an empire. Outside the mansion gates, a small crowd gathers. They do not shout. They do not demand answers. They stand silently, holding hats to their chests, waiting for any word from inside. A few whisper prayers beneath their breath. Far away, in grand rooms filled with polished floors and velvet curtains, telegrams begin to arrive. They are read by officials who sit up straighter as they take in the news. Their expressions shift slowly from confusion to dread. Ambassadors and ministers begin contacting each other through quiet channels. Soft conversations take place behind closed doors. No accusations yet, no declarations, just uneasy murmurs. This will not end here. The alliances will respond. We must be careful. In Belgrade, in Vienna, in Berlin, in St. Petersburg, even in London, officials speak softly but urgently. They understand alliances. They understand tension. They understand that the assassination of an heir cannot be ignored. But the world outside these rooms remains unaware. In Sarajevo, the sun lowers into a soft amber glow. Shadows stretch across the narrow streets. Market stalls close early. Candles flicker in windows. The city feels as though it is holding its breath. People walk home slowly, heads bowed, voices low. No one knows what the next day will bring. No one imagines that within weeks, nations will mobilize, armies will march, and the world will tilt into war. As darkness settles over Sarajevo, the city finally grows still again. Lamps glow along the river. The soft sound of water drifting under the bridge echoes through the quiet streets. It is the last calm night before a storm that will spread across continents. The world does not yet know that this day will mark the beginning of years of sorrow. For now, there is only silence. Night spreads across Sarajevo like a soft blanket. Candles glow in windows overlooking the river. The streets are quiet, emptier than usual. People speak in low voices inside their homes, still replaying the day in slow, uncertain fragments. Inside the governor's residence, lamps burn late into the night. Officials walk slowly through the hallways carrying folded telegram papers. Every message is written with careful hands, each word chosen deliberately. They know the empire must be informed by dawn. Far away in Vienna, the news arrives in a quiet, echoing hall. A messenger delivers it to high-ranking ministers who sit together in the soft glow of a chandelier. They read the short telegram. Once, twice. Their faces grow still and thoughtful. At the Hofburg Palace, word spreads gently from room to room. Servants whisper as they carry candles and silver trays. In a dim chamber, the Emperor Franz Joseph listens with a bowed head. The Archduke, his nephew, gone. There are no shouts, no demands, no orders, just silence and the weight of grief. Across the palace, ministers and advisors gather at long wooden tables. Maps are unrolled, folders are opened, pens glide across papers as diplomats take notes in slow, careful strokes. They discuss possibilities in hushed voices that drift like mist. No one says war out loud, not yet, but the word hangs quietly in the room. Diplomats whisper that Serbia must bear responsibility. They speak of threats, of dangers, of rising nationalism. Their tone remains calm, measured, polished. But beneath the calm, a firm decision begins to take shape. In Belgrade, Serbian officials receive word of the assassination. They gather in dim rooms lit by oil lamps, faces tight with concern. They know that Austria-Hungary will blame them without hesitation. The air grows heavy as they speak quietly about what may come next. In St. Petersburg, Russian ministers listen closely to every telegram. Russia has sworn to protect Serbia as a Slavic brother. They sit in ornate offices with tall windows and velvet curtains, discussing what support they might be forced to give. In Berlin, German officials stand ready to support Austria-Hungary. They believe the empire must act strongly or risk appearing weak. Their conversations are quiet but firm. "We will stand with them," a minister says softly. In London, officials listen carefully as news spreads. The United Kingdom is cautious, not eager for conflict, not eager to intervene. They sit beneath vaulted ceilings, sighing quietly as they consider the fragile state of European alliances. Across Europe, leaders and diplomats sit awake into the night. Every nation waits for the others to act first. Every decision depends on the next. It is a web of obligations and promises, a network so tangled that any pull risks unraveling everything. In Vienna, plans begin to take shape. Stop Serbia, send demands, show strength. These ideas are spoken quietly, almost gently, but once voiced, they cannot be withdrawn. The ministers agree to draft an ultimatum, one so strict Serbia will struggle to accept. The days following the assassination are strangely calm. No armies move, no declarations are made. But behind closed doors, papers are drafted, meetings are held, telegrams flicker across borders like small sparks in a darkening sky. The ultimatum is finally written. 10 demands, strict, heavy, impossible to agree to without sacrificing Serbia's sovereignty. Austria-Hungary delivers it quietly through diplomatic channels. They give Serbia 48 hours to respond. In Belgrade, Serbian officials read the ultimatum with tight jaws and furrowed brows. They accept most demands, almost all of them, but refuse one. The only one that asks Austria-Hungary to control Serbia's internal affairs. They know that accepting it would mean surrender. The partial acceptance is sent back to Vienna. Vienna pauses, reads the reply, and quietly decides it is not enough. War feels closer. In capitals across Europe, leaders stand before generals and ask soft questions about readiness. How many troops? How much time? How prepared are we? The generals answer in calm voices. Mobilization plans rest on polished desks. All it will take is one declaration. And then, on a warm summer day in late July, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. No cannon fires, no armies march, not yet. Just a quiet announcement sent across Europe. A single spark lighting a network of dry, tangled branches. Within a week, nations will mobilize. Alliances will ignite. Borders will tense, and the world will slip into one of the worst days in human history. But for now, the world rests in a heavy silence. It is April 26, 1986. Dawn has not yet risen over the forests of northern Ukraine. Everything is quiet. The city of Pripyat sleeps peacefully behind closed windows and darkened balconies. The lights of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant glow softly on the horizon, a pale, steady shimmer against the deep blue night. Across Pripyat, apartment buildings stand silent. Children's toys lie scattered inside living rooms. Televisions sit quiet. Dogs curl up on small balconies. The only movement is the gentle sway of curtains from a midnight breeze. Life feels still, peaceful, completely unaware of the hours to come. Inside the power plant, the night shift moves with quiet routine. Control panels glow with soft green lights. Meters blink like slow, steady stars. Technicians speak in calm, muffled voices, their footsteps faint against the polished floor. Mugs of warm tea rest beside clipboards and thick manuals. Reactor number 4 sits behind thick walls, humming quietly like a giant sleeping beneath the earth. Pipes vibrate with the flow of energy. Water circulates in deep, rhythmic pulses. Nothing feels dangerous. Nothing feels unusual. This is a normal night. In the control room, engineers prepare for a safety test. It is supposed to be simple. A test that has been done before. One that checks how long turbines can run after the power supply is cut. The test is not rushed. It is not seen as risky. The night feels routine. Thick binders lie open on desks, pages filled with precise steps, diagrams, and numbers. Engineers run their fingers down long columns of instructions. They speak quietly, discussing pressures, temperatures, and readiness. Everything is calm. The control room glows in soft shades of yellow and green. Rows of switches line the walls like organized constellations. Gauges twitch in tiny movements. The air smells faintly of warm metal and old paper. A clock ticks softly above the main control panels. It is approaching 1 in the morning. Outside the plant, the air is crisp and still. Pine trees stand tall in complete silence. A guard, in a heavy coat, walks a slow patrol along a quiet fence, his boots crunching softly in the gravel. He glances at the sky, a deep, cloudless blue sprinkled with faint stars. Back in Pripyat, 30,000 people sleep deeply. Parents rest in warm beds. Children lie beneath soft blankets, covered in cartoon patterns. Alarm clocks wait on bedside tables to ring in a few hours for the start of the weekend. The whole city is completely unaware that history is about to turn. In the control room, operators reduce the reactor's power to prepare for the test. Needles move downward slowly and steadily. No one feels concerned. This is part of the plan. Someone yawns into a sleeve. Another sips tea from a chipped plant mug. Everything feels steady. A few gauges twitch strangely. A minor, unexpected dip in power output. Someone leans closer to examine the dials, tilting his head, narrowing his eyes. It is odd, but not alarming. Just a note to keep watch. The shift leader studies the readings and decides the test will continue. His voice remains calm and measured. The operators adjust controls accordingly, making small, delicate changes to keep power stable. Not far from the plant, the Pripyat River moves quietly in the dark. Water laps against the concrete embankment in slow, gentle waves. The moon reflects softly on its surface, rippling with every touch of night breeze. The world outside feels peaceful, almost unaware of the machinery humming nearby. Back inside, a few readings settle strangely low. Operators lean in, tap the gauges lightly, and speak in soft tones. Nothing dramatic, nothing frightening, just faint hints of something not quite right, too subtle for alarm. Beyond the plant walls, beyond the sleeping city, beyond the silent river, the night seems to hold its breath. Inside, engineers prepare for the next step in the test. They do not know that the smallest choices made in these quiet hours will shape the course of one of the worst days in human history. For now, everything remains calm. Everything remains quiet. The control room's gentle glow fills the air with a warm yellow light. Operators walk slowly between rows of panels, checking gauges, speaking in low, steady voices. Nothing feels rushed. Nothing feels dramatic. But beneath the calm, numbers begin to shift in small and delicate ways. As part of the safety test, the team lowers the reactor's power to a very small level. The needle descends gradually, like a slow heartbeat winding down. The room remains warm and quiet. Steam pipes rumble faintly somewhere in the distance. The power dips lower than they intended, lower than is comfortable. One operator leans closer, squinting at the gauge as though the needle might change its mind if he stares long enough. Another murmurs that it is a little low. His voice stays calm. They adjust controls to nudge the power back up. Instruments respond slowly, reluctant, as if waking from sleep. Minutes pass in patient silence. The reactor remains stubbornly quiet and cold. Nothing seems urgent, only inconvenient. Gauges twitch like tired eyes. The power creeps upward only slightly. Not enough, not stable. Operators exchange soft glances, uncertain, not afraid. A supervisor rests one hand on the console and quietly tells them to keep going. To raise the power, they withdraw more control rods than usual. Long metal rods that regulate the heart of the reactor. They glide upward slowly with a deep metallic sigh. It is a choice made gently, almost casually, but it will matter in ways no one imagines yet. While the operators work, the city of Pripyat rests peacefully. Street lamps glow over empty playgrounds. The Ferris wheel stands silent in the night breeze. Apartments are quiet, except for the occasional shift of someone in sleep, The world remains beautifully unaware. In the control room, the power finally begins to drift upward, but not smoothly, not confidently. It rises like a flickering flame, briefly bright, then dim again. Operators frown softly at the inconsistent readings. One taps the gauge with his knuckle. Another checks the graphite core temperatures. Deep inside the reactor, steam builds in odd, uneven pockets. In the pipes, ghost-like rattles echo softly. Pressure rises and falls in slow, strange waves. The instruments try their best to keep up. One technician steps closer to the main console. "It does not feel right," he murmurs. Another replies that the numbers are within limits. His tone remains calm, unruffled. The supervisor folds his arms and watches the panel with mild worry. Nothing in the room suggests danger, just caution. At last, the operators reach a power level just high enough to continue. Not ideal, not perfect, but acceptable for the test. They prepare to cut the steam supply to the turbines. The reactor's core begins to behave strangely. Every small adjustment seems to cause an exaggerated response, like a pot on a stove that suddenly boils faster than expected. "It is sensitive tonight," someone says quietly. They continue anyway. To simulate a power failure, they close the valves feeding steam into the turbines. The giant metal blades begin to slow with a long, low groan. Their momentum keeps them spinning for a while, like a playground wheel turning after a gentle push. With the steam cut off, pressure builds inside the reactor. It is subtle at first, barely noticeable. A needle rises a few millimeters. Another gauge leans slightly to the right. Operators track each change with steady eyes. No one calls for a stop. The clock approaches 1:20 in the morning. Outside, Pripyat lies silent under a moonlit sky. Inside the plant, the test continues, calmly, methodically, despite the small signs of imbalance. In a few minutes, the reactor will begin to drift beyond control. But for now, the night remains quiet. The hum of machinery soft and steady. The operators focused and unaware. History is turning its wheels slowly. The turbines, huge and heavy, spin more slowly now. Their once powerful hum softens into a distant, steady rhythm. The room feels warmer. The lights glow softly over control panels filled with blinking numbers and trembling needles. In the heart of Reactor 4, something shifts. Steam builds and breaks in odd patterns, uneven, unpredictable. It moves through the pipes with a low, unstable rumble that barely reaches the control room. Operators continue monitoring the gauges with calm expressions. A faint rise appears on 1 meter, then another. The power climbs in small steps, hesitant at first, then steadier. Someone notes quietly that it is rising. His voice is soft, without fear. A low-pressure alarm lights up for a moment, then blinks away. A temperature gauge shifts slightly higher than expected. Tiny signs. Easy to dismiss, easy to overlook. One operator rubs his eyes and leans closer to the panel. The reactor is now unusually responsive. Every small adjustment causes another shift. A domino-like chain of reactions building slowly in the deep, unseen chamber beneath tons of steel and concrete. But the control room stays quiet. The hum of machinery, the only steady sound. Water inside the reactor begins to fall just a little too low. Steam replaces it in pockets. These small voids change the reactor's behavior in ways that are hard to predict. One operator taps the water gauge lightly, as though it might wake up. The shift supervisor steps forward to check the readings. He speaks evenly, directing the team to maintain control and continue the test. His calmness creates a sense of stability, even though the numbers continue drifting in strange directions. Pumps meant to circulate water begin to work harder. Their low rumble deepens, like a tired engine straining gently. The imbalance between water and steam continues to grow. Slowly, quietly. Still, no one calls for an emergency stop. Deep inside the core, the graphite and fuel begin to warm. Not all at once, not violently. Just a subtle rise, degree by degree. A warmth spreading through the metal in slow, creeping waves. To the operators, the rising numbers do not yet seem alarming. They have seen similar fluctuations before. They adjust controls, flip switches, and log readings on paper. Everything feels routine on the surface, but something deeper is shifting. Inside the reactor, a quiet acceleration takes place. Steam pockets form faster. Water levels change more dramatically. The core's reactivity begins to rise with increasing speed, a climb almost invisible until it is too late. The operators try to steady it. They increase water flow. They readjust power levels. They speak softly to one another. Their efforts slow the rise a little, but not enough. The reactor seems to pull forward on its own, like a train on a downward slope. Suddenly, the gauges behave strangely. A temperature reading jumps slightly. A pressure alarm flickers. A water level dips faster than expected. The supervisor narrows his eyes and quietly tells the team to hold it steady. But the numbers stop listening. One operator reaches for the AZ5 button, the emergency shutdown. Not in panic, not in fear, just as a precaution to settle the system back into stability. The button remains untouched for now, but hands hover nearby. The clock in the control room nears 1:23 in the morning. Lights flicker softly across the panels. Steam builds in the deep chambers of the reactor in ways the operators cannot see. The air feels thicker, warmer, still. In the next moments, they will press the shutdown button. A button meant for safety. A button designed to calm the reactor. But instead, it will trigger the first moment of catastrophe. For now, everything remains calm. Everything remains silent. The control room moves through its last moments of routine. Operators take slow breaths as they prepare to stabilize the reactor one final time. Their faces look tired but calm. The clock on the wall ticks softly. It is 22 minutes past 1 in the morning. The air feels warm, still, and heavy in a way no one notices. One operator extends his hand over the shutdown button, AZ5, a large rectangular switch designed to save the system in a moment of need. His hand hovers, then rests gently on the surface. No fear, just routine. He presses it. Inside the reactor core, control rods begin sliding downward. Long metal columns meant to calm the reaction and quiet the energy inside. But these rods contain graphite tips, a design flaw unknown to the operators. As they descend, they briefly increase reactivity instead of reducing it. A powerful surge ripples through the core. Not loud, not violent, just a sudden and unstoppable rise in energy. The gauges in the control room jump sharply. A few operators lean closer with puzzled expressions. Someone whispers that it is strange. Inside the reactor, steam expands rapidly. Pipes vibrate softly as pressure builds. Metal pushes against metal in deep, echoing groans. The operators cannot see the core, only the blinking lights on their panels. The plant is now seconds away from changing forever. A deep rumble begins beneath the floor, soft at first, like distant thunder rolling through the earth. Operators glance downward, instinctively sensing something happening beneath their feet. Before they speak, the room changes. With a sudden burst of pressure, a shock wave rises through the reactor building. There is no loud, violent roar in this retelling, just a deep, muffled thud, as if the earth itself exhaled too quickly. The floor trembles. Dust drifts from the ceiling in tiny pale clouds. The force pushes upward through the structure. A section of the reactor hall rips open, releasing a plume of hot air and glowing debris into the night. Above the plant, the dark sky splits with a faint red glow, soft and eerie, almost beautiful in its strangeness. For a moment, the control room is completely silent. Operators stand frozen, eyes wide, but breaths slow and controlled. Boards flicker, lights blink. A few instruments go dark. No one raises their voice. Outside the plant, workers on the night shift see a pillar of pale blue light, rising gently into the sky. A glow caused by ionized air. It looks surreal, like the sky has opened into another world. Some stare in awe. Some step closer without fear. A second, smaller blast shakes the building. Metal beams fall inward with slow, echoing crashes. A warm wave of air flows outward from the reactor hall and drifts across the grounds like a strange, unnatural breeze. Pripyat sleeps on without waking. Minutes later, firefighters from Pripyat arrive. They climb from their trucks with calm determination. No panic, no shouts, just quiet discipline as they look up at the glowing roof. They believe it is only a roof fire. As they begin their work, small flecks of ash float gently down through the glowing air. They land softly on helmets, jackets, and gloved hands. The particles sparkle like tiny silver snowflakes in the strange light. None of them know what it truly is. In Pripyat, alarms do not ring. Windows remain dark. Children sleep with stuffed toys tucked under their arms. A woman rolls over in bed, unaware of the faint blue glow on the horizon. The world has changed without the city noticing. The first light of dawn begins to rise. Soft, grey morning creeps over the rooftops. Birds begin to stir in quiet, fluttering motions. The plant still smoulders with warm, rising air. No one yet understands what has happened. They will learn soon. But for now, the world holds its breath in the quiet after the blast. It is December 26, 2004. The sun rises slowly over the Indian Ocean, its light stretching across the waves in soft ribbons of gold. The water is calm, almost impossibly calm, a smooth, glassy surface that barely stirs. The sky is clear, a pale blue canvas touched with faint hints of pink near the horizon. Across the coasts of Indonesia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, and India, villages wake quietly. Fishermen gather nets along the shoreline. Small boats tug lazily against wooden posts. Children chase one another across warm sand still cool from the night. Everything feels peaceful. In nearby resorts, tourists step onto balconies to breathe in the warm morning air. Some sip coffee while overlooking the waves. Others walk along the waterline, leaving soft footprints in perfect sand. The world feels gentle, as though nothing bad could possibly happen. For reasons no one questions, the ocean lies flatter than usual. Waves move in long, slow breaths, barely breaking as they reach the shore. A fisherman dips his hand into the water, surprised by its stillness. It feels like the calmest day of the year. Vendors set up small markets along the beach, arranging seashell necklaces, fresh fruit, and colourful sarongs in neat rows. Families prepare breakfast in open-air kitchens. A radio plays a gentle tune through soft static. Everything moves at an unhurried pace. Far below the water, the earth stirs. Deep beneath the ocean floor, beyond the reach of fishing boats and swimmers, tectonic plates shift, quietly, enormously. The movement is silent, its sound too deep to reach the surface. But the earth has begun to change. More than 10 kilometers below sea level, a rupture forms along a vast fault line. Rock presses against rock. A sudden release follows, violent in scale, but silent above. The sea floor rises upward in one long, sweeping motion. The ocean, so peaceful moments ago, absorbs the shift. A massive wave of energy spreads outward through the deep water. Not a surface wave, not a crest, just a silent force racing beneath the surface at the speed of a jet plane. People on shore notice nothing. Along the beaches of Aceh, Phuket, Khao Lak, Colombo, and dozens of coastal towns, the world remains exactly as it was. Children laugh and build sandcastles. Fishermen repair nets by the docks. Travelers take photographs of the crystal blue sea. There is no hint of what is moving toward them. A warm breeze drifts across the coastline, carrying the scent of salt and tropical flowers. Palm trees sway gently. Birds glide low over the water in slow, graceful arcs. It is a picture of absolute tranquility. The ocean deepens in color almost imperceptibly. A richer, darker blue farther out. A local boatman pauses and squints toward the horizon. The water looks different, but not enough to cause concern. He shrugs and returns to tying knots in his fishing line. A resort worker sweeps sand from a wooden deck. A woman adjusts her towel to lie in the sun. A boy searches for small crabs along the shallow water. The morning feels soft, easy, and full of promise. Nothing seems unusual. Deep beneath the surface, the energy continues to spread toward Sri Lanka, toward Thailand, toward India. Still silent, still invisible. A giant force moving across water that appears perfectly calm. More people arrive at the shore. Joggers make slow loops near the water. Families gather beneath umbrellas. Hotel staff place rows of chairs facing the sea. The world feels bright and normal. The morning sun climbs higher in the sky. The horizon glows with soft gold. The ocean still looks quiet and inviting. These are the final peaceful moments before the wave reaches land. No one knows it, no one feels it. But beneath the surface, the sea is carrying the weight of one of the worst days in human history. For now, the world remains calm. The sun rises a little higher over the Indian Ocean. Warm light stretches across the beaches of Thailand, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and India. Sand glows, palm trees sway, children laugh and run through the shallows. Nothing looks unusual. Somewhere along the shoreline, a couple walking hand in hand pauses. There is nothing they can name, nothing they can point to. Just a soft, subtle feeling that the world is strangely quiet. They shrug, smile, and continue walking. Fishermen along the coast of Aceh notice tiny changes first. Water levels dip slightly lower than they should. Not dramatically, not fast. Just a few centimeters, then a few more. One fisherman rises from his crouch, looking out toward the horizon with narrowed eyes. Then, in minutes, the water begins to pull away from the shore. Slowly, smoothly, quietly, as if someone has taken hold of the entire ocean and drawn it back with a gentle hand. The sand beneath glitters with sudden brightness. Children run onto the exposed seabed, discovering seashells revealed for the first time in years. Tourists walk barefoot on wet sand that was underwater moments ago. Some point and laugh softly, surprised by this sudden gift of empty shoreline. No one feels afraid. Small fishing boats settle awkwardly on their sides as the water retreats farther. Their hulls creak softly against the shifting ground. Fishermen approach them, touching the wood with confusion. "The tide is strange today," one murmurs, his voice barely above a whisper. As the sea continues to slide backward, small fish glitter across the exposed sand. Crabs scuttle in confused patterns, caught between the disappearing tide and the growing number of curious onlookers. Children kneel to pick up smooth stones and colorful shells once, hidden beneath the waves. It feels like a moment of wonder. Seabirds begin to circle overhead. They glide in restless loops, landing briefly on the exposed seabed before lifting off again, as if sensing something unseen. Their calls echo in long, hollow notes across the widening beach. The water continues to withdraw, farther and farther still. Lines of coral and dark ridges of rock appear in the open air for the first time in decades. People walk toward them with cameras and curiosity, pointing, laughing, gathering closer. It feels surreal, beautiful in a strange, otherworldly way. Someone notices the horizon looks different. The waterline is no longer smooth. A distant bulge rises very slowly, too low to be a wave, too wide to be a boat. It is far away, barely visible. Most people don't see it yet. A few older fishermen stop working and stare. Their breathing grows still. They whisper quietly among themselves, voices touched with concern. They have lived by the sea their whole lives, and they know the ocean never retreats this far. But the moment remains peaceful. A soft, strange stillness settles over the coastline. Waves stop forming entirely. Palm leaves no longer sway. The wind itself seems to pause, as though waiting. The world grows too quiet. That distant rise along the horizon changes shape. It looks almost like a long, low hill moving toward the shore. Still gentle, still far away. A tourist raises a camera and snaps a picture, unaware of what it truly is. The moment feels mysterious but calm. Some families begin to wander back to the beachside shops, thinking breakfast is nearly ready. Others pick up towels and sandals from the sand. A child calls out to his mother, proudly showing her a starfish he found in the retreating tide. No one hurries. The exposed seabed shines brightly under the rising sun. Footprints trail far across the wet ground. The ocean, still pulled impossibly far away, glimmers with a thin line of silver. The distant shape on the horizon edges closer, slow, steady, and growing. But for now, the world remains curious, calm, and unaware that this strange beauty is the final warning before the water returns with unimaginable force. The shoreline remains quiet as people wander along the exposed seabed. Far in the distance, a soft sound begins, a low, rolling hum, like wind moving through distant canyons. Most do not hear it. Those who do think it might be an airplane or far-off thunder. That strange bulge along the horizon grows taller, still smooth, still wide, still strangely beautiful in the morning light. A group of tourists lift their cameras, capturing a moment they don't yet understand. The water keeps pulling backward. Slowly, the distant shape reveals its true form, a towering swell, not curved like a surf wave, but rising like a soft cliff of moving water. It stretches across the horizon in a long, dark line. The ocean is returning. Some fishermen stand frozen. They set down their nets with quiet hands and watch the approaching swell. One of them whispers a single warning, carried softly by instinct and generations of memory. The sea is coming back. Families begin walking toward the beach, not running, just moving with calm confusion. Mothers call to their children. Tourists gather their towels, thinking a fast-rising tide is all they're witnessing. The wave continues its slow approach. The low hum grows deeper, fuller, like the sound of a train approaching from far away. Palm trees tremble ever so slightly in the soft wind, pushed ahead of the swell. The last moments before the wave arrives feel unreal. The air grows heavy. The ocean's surface smooths into a dark mirror. Birds rise from the treetops, circling upward in wide, unsettled arcs. People look around, uncertain, faces soft with confusion. The swell lifts higher into view, a mass of water so large it begins to block the horizon. Not curling, not breaking, just rising in a quiet, unstoppable wall. A pause hangs in the warm air. The ocean seems to inhale. Shadows stretch across the sand as the wall of water casts its shape over the coastline. Time feels slow, as if the world is watching itself. The first edge of the wave touches the shore, not with a violent crash, but with a deep, powerful shove that pushes sand and shells far inland. Water rises in seconds. The swell surpasses the height of a person. In places like Phuket and Khao Lak, the wave flows into streets like a moving wall. Boats lift from their anchor points. Cars shift slowly as water carries them forward. The sound is a deep, muted roar, steady, immense, and strangely calm. Shops at the shoreline meet the rising ocean with soft, echoing thuds. Water pours through open doorways, filling rooms with swirling foam. Chairs float, tables drift, curtains sway in the moving current. Everything feels slow and dreamlike. Palm trees bend as water flows past their trunks. Birds scatter toward higher branches. Dogs bark once, then fall silent. The sea continues its steady push inland, carrying pieces of wood, palm leaves, and drifting belongings. People move toward higher ground, small hills, balconies, rooftops. Not panicked, not screaming, just quiet urgency, a simple need to be above the rising water. They watch as the wave continues its slow, relentless advance. After several long minutes, the water begins to lose momentum. Its force slows, then pauses. A strange silence settles across the coastline. No one realizes that this is only the first wave. Others are already on their way. For now, the ocean rests in a calm, heavy stillness. A breath held between two terrible moments. The world waits. The coastline rests in an unfamiliar stillness. The first wave has already swept inland and now settles quietly, like a tide that rose too quickly and forgot where it belonged. Water laps softly against buildings, trees, and rooftops. The air feels thick, warm, and strangely quiet. From hillsides, balconies, and raised walkways, people look out over a coastline they no longer recognize. The beach that existed minutes ago is gone. The shoreline is swallowed by water that moves in slow, gentle swirls. They watch in stunned silence. After several minutes, the ocean begins to pull back again, not as steadily as a normal tide, but in long, slow breaths, like a giant exhaling. The water slides back toward the sea, leaving behind a glistening landscape of wet sand and scattered belongings. Once more, the ocean withdraws farther than it should. It exposes the sea floor again, but this time, the emptiness feels heavier. A fisherman stands at the edge of a flooded street, watching the retreating water with tired eyes. He whispers to no one in particular, "It's going to come again." High above, birds loop in restless circles as though searching for the missing shoreline. Their calls echo across the still air in soft, hollow cries. Palm trees bend and straighten as the last breeze from the wave drifts past. The sea rests once more in a wide, hollow basin, as though gathering its strength. The empty space between the land and the returning water stretches farther than before. People wait in quiet anticipation. Along the horizon, another line appears, smooth, wide, unbroken. It rises slowly from the deep blue, darkening as it grows. Those who see it do not speak at first. The water begins to return, not hurried, not loud, just steady, an enormous mass moving with calm intention. The world watches from higher places. When the second wave arrives, it does not crash like a surf wave. It rises, pushes, glides forward with deep, unstoppable pressure. Buildings already weakened stand quietly against the advancing water. Water spreads through streets and gardens, flowing around corners and through doorways in long, quiet streams. Boats drift softly across places that were roads only minutes earlier. The world feels momentarily weightless. Across Sri Lanka, Thailand, India, and Indonesia, the ocean now covers entire neighborhoods in a smooth, shimmering sheet. Only palm tops, rooftops, and balconies peek through the surface. Everything else rests beneath the water in a silent pause. After several long minutes, the water begins to relax. It settles, slows, then gently begins its retreat once more. The sun glints off the rippling surface as it slides back toward the sea. The air grows warmer. Far on the horizon, the last swell begins to rise. It is smaller than the first two, but still immense in its quiet power. It rolls forward like a soft, dark blue hill gliding across the water. The third wave reaches the coastline with patient strength. It flows into already flooded areas, pushing the waterline just a little farther. A quiet final step in a long, overwhelming movement. Then, for the first time, the ocean begins its true retreat. The waves settle. The horizon smooths. The great movements of the sea finally begin to calm. The water recedes inch by inch, minute by minute. Shorelines reappear in soft, shimmering pieces. A heavy stillness fills the world, a silence unlike any that came before. The morning that began in peaceful calm has transformed the lives of millions. But for now, the ocean rests. The waves grow quiet, and the coastline waits in silence for the world to understand what has happened. Across hours of quiet storytelling, we've walked through 6 days when the world shifted beneath ordinary people. 6 mornings that began calmly, quietly, and then changed everything. We began in Pompeii, a warm morning in the year 79, when the sun rose over tiled roofs and street vendors arranged their bread as they always did. The ground trembled softly. A plume rose from Vesuvius, thin at first, then stretching into a towering column of ash. People looked upward in confusion and awe, unable to understand what was unfolding. By the time the sky turned black, the day had already become one of the worst in human history. Then we traveled to the 14th century, to a quiet port city where a single ship arrived in the early morning light. Dock workers hauled crates. Families walked the streets. No one knew that tiny fleas hidden on rats carried a sickness that would reshape the world. The first fevers appeared, the first dark spots, the first uneasy whispers. A calm morning became the beginning of the Black Death. In Lisbon, in 1755, All Saints' Day began with prayer. Candles flickered, bells chimed, and families filled grand churches in the soft golden light. Then the earth roared, walls swayed, towers fell, and the city split open in a cloud of dust and fire. A peaceful holiday morning became one of the deadliest earthquakes ever recorded. Hiroshima woke to sunlight, children walking to school, workers opening shop doors, a sky so clear it looked like glass. At 8:15 a.m., a single flash of light turned morning into fire. A city living its ordinary life experienced a force beyond anything imagined. The stillness afterward felt impossibly heavy, echoing across generations. In 1986, Pripyat slept peacefully beneath soft electric lights. Families rested. Technicians at Reactor 4 performed routine operations that felt familiar and controlled. But deep inside the reactor, heat and pressure rose too quickly. A sudden surge, a flawed design, and human decisions colliding at the wrong moment. The explosion was quiet at first. A flash, a shockwave, a blue glow rising into the night sky. People stepped onto balconies, watching the light without realizing what it meant. And on December 26, 2004, the Indian Ocean woke to perfect calm. Fishermen prepared their nets. Tourists walked along warm sand. A gentle sky stretched over the water. Far beneath the sea floor, the earth shifted. Minutes later, the ocean pulled back, slowly, strangely, revealing the seabed in a sight that felt curious and harmless. Then the wave came. Each of these days began normally. A child waking up, a shop opening, a neighbor waving, breakfast cooking, the world feeling familiar. None of these mornings looked like history. In Pompeii, in medieval Europe, in Lisbon, in Hiroshima, in Pripyat, and across the Indian Ocean, the pattern was the same. Life moved quietly. Routines continued. Everything felt safe. And then, a single event shifted the world in a moment. We often think of history as leaders and armies, but days like these belong to ordinary people. A baker serving bread as ash began to fall. A farmer discovering a fever on an ordinary afternoon. A family stepping outside after an earthquake turned their street to rubble. A teacher looking out the window minutes before the flash. A technician staring at strange readings in the reactor room. A fisherman noticing the sea pulling back too far. History is lived by people who never asked to be remembered. The blackened sky of Pompeii, the silent ships of the Black Death, the broken stones of Lisbon, the blinding light over Hiroshima, the glowing graphite at Chernobyl, the retreating sea before the tsunami. Different events, different centuries, different causes, yet tied together by one quiet truth. A morning that began gently became unforgettable. Every one of these days reshaped the future. Volcanoes were studied more closely. Plagues transformed medicine. Earthquakes changed architecture. Nuclear power was re-evaluated. Wars ended. Warning systems stretched across oceans. Tragedy became knowledge. Knowledge became safety. And in every place where these events happened, ordinary life eventually returned. Streets rebuilt, communities gathered, children played again, markets reopened. The world always finds its way back to calm. These 6 days are among the worst in human history. But remembering them does not mean reliving the fear. It means understanding the world a little more deeply, seeing how fragile it can be and how resilient. From the streets of Pompeii to the shores of Thailand, from medieval towns to modern power plants, the thread is the same. People woke up believing the day would be ordinary, and history had other plans. 6 days when everything changed, and the quiet moments before became memories the world will never forget. The stories have ended now. The voices of volcanoes, cities, oceans, and centuries have faded into silence. What remains is the stillness of this moment, a soft, steady calm that settles over your body like warm evening light. Let the world around you slow down. Feel the edges of the day soften and blur, as if everything is slipping gently into the background. Nothing needs your attention now. Nothing needs your effort. You're safe here, in this quiet space. Your breathing naturally slows. Each inhale draws in comfort. Each exhale releases whatever weight you've carried today. Let every breath be softer and calmer than the one before. Imagine the calm of an empty street at night, the quiet of a museum after closing, the hush of a coastline at dawn. That kind of stillness begins to move through you now, warm, slow, heavy in the most peaceful way. Thoughts may rise and fall like dust drifting through a beam of light. They appear softly, they settle softly, and they disappear. You don't need to follow any of them. Let them drift. Let them fade. Your shoulders loosen. Your hands relax. Your legs sink deeper into whatever is holding you. Your whole body feels heavier, warmer, more at ease. Everything below your head has already begun to sleep. Picture a wide, open space, a silver ocean, a quiet valley, an ancient moonlit street. Wherever you imagine, let it be spacious. Let it be yours, a place where nothing can disturb you. As you rest in that space, time begins to stretch. Minutes feel longer, moments feel softer. Everything slows into one smooth flow with no beginning and no end. Sleep lives inside that stillness. If any small threads of wakefulness remain, little thoughts, tiny pieces of tension, let them dissolve the way ripples fade on quiet water. This is the time when everything gently lets go. You're drifting now, softly, slowly, like a leaf falling through warm air, or a small boat rocking gently on a moonlit shore. Every moment carries you deeper into rest. Whatever the day held, tasks, questions, noise, they feel distant now, unimportant, unreal. The mind is lighter, the heart is slower, the world is quieter. You're arriving at that soft shoreline between waking and dreaming, where thoughts become images and images become feeling. This is where sleep begins, not suddenly, but slowly, the way night settles over a peaceful valley. Your breath is steady now, your heartbeat slow, your body warm. The muscles of your face soften. Your eyelids grow heavy. Your mind quiets. There is nothing left to do. Nothing left to think. Only rest waiting patiently for you. And if any sounds around you remain, they fade to a gentle blur. Your awareness loosens. The edges of your thoughts grow dim. Your inner world becomes soft, comfortable, dreamlike. You are drifting without effort. Now the quiet deepens. Your breath settles into its slow rhythm. Your body sinks a little more. Sleep is no longer approaching. It is here, around you, within you, warm, deep, still. Let the world fade. Let the night hold you. You can rest now.